What if a fried oyster po' boy and a katsu sando had a baby? We live in a world where this sandwich exists because of one man.
Hey, I'm Daniel Sharp. I'm going to be putting together a Yuzu Remoulade, infusing Japanese ingredients like fresh wasabi and yuzu koshu. We're fortunate enough to find fresh wasabi. Most wasabi you see everywhere at sushi bars is actually horseradish with green dye in it. Real wasabi is pretty hard to come by. It's very hard to cultivate. It has not ever responded super well to being farmed. Real wasabi is on the rare side and more expensive side. But, you know, it has that pungent, like kind of horseradishy taste. The real stuff is just a little bit more refined and unique. We're going to grate a little bit of this for our remoulade. Classically, a remoulade would use horseradish. Depending on where you grate it on the root, the flavor changes from one end to the other. It's got a nice bite, but it doesn't have quite the punch, that horseradish gives you sometimes. Traditional remoulade, dill pickles or something like that. Petite cornichons are always nice and briny. So that was about a tablespoon of wasabi, quarter of a cup of chopped pickles of your choosing. I used cornichons. I'm going to do a couple dashes of Lea & Perrins Worcestershire. This will be about a level tablespoon of mustard there. Yuzu koshu is made from yuzu peel, a grated yuzu zest, and a green Japanese pepper and salt. It's all ground together into this chili paste, which has a lot of floral yuzu notes. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of that. Add the juice of one lemon. In this case, I'm using a Meyer lemon. You could also use a lime. Yuzu is kind of like somewhere between a Meyer lemon and a lime in the flavor profile. Main ingredient in a remoulade is the mayonnaise. So it's about a half cup of mayo we're going to add in here. Mince one garlic clove. So I'm going to make a little garlic paste. Put salt on there. It helps crush the garlic very quickly. Pastified. Another teaspoon of this. Yuzu koshu. Boom. And more of that flavor. And another tablespoon of mustard. So for those keeping score, 2 teaspoons of yuzu koshu, 2 tablespoons of mustard. Remoulade. That is done. We're making fried oysters. I'm going to do a 2-to-1 cornmeal to potato starch. Doesn't have to be an exact science. So fried oysters, I'm going to have a little bit of Old Bay, like a teaspoon in there, and then a couple pinches of salt for flavor. So cornmeal is very traditional for if you're making an oyster po' boy, it's cornmeal. The potato starch in frying in Japanese cuisine, they use a lot of potato starch because gives a very crunchy texture. Considering we were making a Japanese sandwich meets oyster po' boy, I'm employing 2 techniques in one. We got our oysters here, and I've been soaking them in milk. The milk is going to be what binds the breading to the outside of the oysters, and it mellows out the flavor of them a little bit. I bought these pre-shucked oysters. If you're ambitious, you can shuck your own oysters. For frying and cooking oysters, I get the pre-shucked ones. These are on the larger side. I'll show you. I generally recommend for cooking a larger oyster if you're going to eat it like raw with mignonette, a smaller oyster. There's no bad choice of oyster. Okay. So take an oyster. sure that it's not stuck to the bottom. When I drop stuff in the oil, I don't drop it. I rest it, I put it in slowly, and I kind of let before I release it, I kind of let the frying action start so that way it doesn't just sink to the bottom right away and stick. These only take about a minute to cook. It'll be very quick. We were at 350. You always, you want to have a good amount of oil. You don't want the temperature to drop a lot when you add things to the oil. You don't want to overcrowd the oil. It maintains a nice high temperature and crunchy, crispy frying. Okay, that looks good. So, guys, we got an A5 picanha. Incredible marbling on this steak. The Wagyu, I'm going to score this fat just a little bit because I want it to render. You know, when I cook Japanese beef like this, it's got so much intermuscular fat. It's so rich that it warrants its own kind of preparation. You don't want to eat it in the same way you would eat like a prime steak. It's just too much, it's too rich. So they eat smaller portions of it and with different preparations. So nice and salted. All right, so we're gonna sear this. I want to get this fat cap a little bit crispy, so I'm just gonna take this whole thing and rest it on the side of my plancha here.
The one side of the camera can't see.
Sorry, I should have done it on the other. There we go. There's some searing, sizzling. Yeah, I just want to render some of that fat out. Get a nice brown crust on the steak. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, I want this thing to go quickly because of the fat content. This basically steak will melt. So you want it to sear.
What are you looking for?
Mostly doneness. I want this to go pretty quick. I'm just trying to get some nice grill marks on there. The fat transfers the heat relatively quickly, so Wagyu will cook pretty swiftly. You gotta watch it. I don't want to, overcook this piece of meat. Glorious. Feel it? I think we're there. Yeah. That's that. So a good rule of thumb on resting a steak is about half the time it took to cook it, at least. I would say like 3 to 5 minutes is the window there. A little butter to the griddle. Toasting our katsu sandwich bread. So now we're ready to cut our fabulous piece of A5 picanha that we got from the Wagyu den. It's nicely rested. All right, so we're ready to slice this up. Beautifully rare. Wow, look at that. Incredible. Incredible. So I'm gonna put a little bit of tonkatsu sauce down to start. Look at that. And now we have our oysters. Also slicing. want to pack this in a nice big full sandwich. And our Yuzu Wasabi Remoulade. We top. I was debating crust on or crust off. You know, a lot of times very traditional Japanese would be crust off. However, because this is a mashup of po' boy meets katsu, I'm gonna leave the crusts on.